coming to you live from Canada. So let's introduce them right now. Okay, hold on.
Hey, Jody.
Hey, nice to finally meet you. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. I'm doing
Huh?
great. Nice to meet you too.
Same here. So you're out in Canada. How's the weather?
Well, we finally got in Canada, especially in Alberta, we get 4 seasons each week. We'll
Each
get
week.
some, yeah, we'll get some snow, we'll get some rain, we'll get some fall, we'll get some summer, and then all of a sudden we'll get a blast of summer, then a bit of rain, and then we're back to winter again. And so it's all good.
Well, I'm so blessed to have you on. I'm so excited to talk about everything you've done and what you're moving forward to do. Um, let's tell everybody a little bit about you. You're a screenwriter, movie writer. You're a music teacher,
Well,
and also a like a what's it called? Acting teacher.
I think you've just nailed it all down. I took my
Did I?
glasses.
I'm sure I left something out.
So I act without my glasses, so I'm going to take these off because the glare and the
I'm keeping mine off too.
yeah, because the intensity.
We'll wing it. We'll pretend like we can see.
All right. Well, I've been around the planet quite a bit. I started in my life as in my career life. I got married at pretty young at 20, and my wife and I have now been married for, I hate to say this, 43 years. And
Okay, that was hard to get out, right? Right? Like when you say it out loud, it's like
only because people start doing the math, they're going, "Oh my goodness, did he get married when he was 6?" And that's not true because we got married when we were
you
9
look
and
great. You look great. That you look very young.
Thank you. Um,
Mhm.
my first career was even in the third year university. I was I had a school board in Edmonton. They came to me and said, "We are giving you a job when you graduate." I said, "Okay, great." So they were so desperate for fine arts teachers back then. They would scout you out, and so they came to my to the University of Alberta and said, "Here's your job. Don't go anywhere." Okay. So I
Oh,
get this at 20, almost 21. I stepped out of university, and at 22 I was in a classroom already,
did
and
you like
and
it?
oh, I loved it. I dearly love teaching fine arts, but it's kind of funny. In the early days, I had to convince the caretakers that I was a teacher and not a student.
Oh,
So I finally
okay.
had to carry
That's
around
a
a
good
card.
thing.
I go, well, kid. I finally had when I got my permanent teacher certificate. I carried it around as a card so I could actually so people could see that I was a teacher, not a student. But I had a lot of fun, and I taught full time for 10 years, and it I loved it to a point where because I love the students, I love taking them on a journey to become all they could become in the fine arts world. And then I taught 5 years part time. But in my first 10 years, I loved it probably too much, and because along with a young bride and having two kids right away, fairly soon, like 2 3 years into it, I found and teaching of course didn't pay anything back then. It paid you enough to almost pay your mortgage and almost pay for this, you know, but
It's
it
kind
didn't
of the
pay for
same these
anything.
days, no?
Yeah, exactly. So I also played in a band on the weekend, a wedding band, and a typical band that played for conventions, things like that, and sang in a quartet and did all the stuff. Did my church work, did all the stuff, and so within the ten
Was it a
years,
Christian school or just a public school? Was it a
no,
Christian
this was
school?
a public fine art. I finished my teaching stint when I finally realized that my mind could take it, but my body couldn't take it anymore. So I had to go to part time teaching, which is kind of funny because then you now you teach part time, but you teach full time, but you get part time wages. So that became harder to do as well. But
Mm.
one of my claims to fame, and I will probably write this into a movie script one day, is that in Edmonton, there's a fine arts school called Victoria Composite High School for the performing arts. And my principal at the high school that I was at asked me, Dan, would you like to come over? We're going to transform an inner city high school into a fine arts school for the performing arts. And I thought, I am so up for that challenge. So get this. We went to an inner city high school where it's been predominantly a African American high school in the inner city of Edmonton, and you had all kinds. It was a mixed race high school, a few Caucasians, you name it, but for the most part, it was African American, and they all just had this desire to want to sing and act, but they all came with, oh, just beautiful attitudes of inner city. I think I taught a classroom full of pimps, girls who are of the evening, guys who were drug traffickers. I think they were all in my choir at one point. And so there I was in my last 3-4 years of teaching, transforming this high school into fine arts high school. And so
Amazing.
that wasn't just a challenge, that was a life-changing challenge, to the point where I had to be on stage all the time at every moment and performing with them, so that or performing in front of them, so that they could buy the idea that the arts could be a way of changing their lives. And I'm proud to say many of my kids went on to become professionals in all kinds of ways. And so many stories there. We could go on for days. But I want to do a movie about that one day. That it's, saving. That one, Mr. Holland's Opus. Well, this
Yes,
would have Mr. Bagan's drama class, Mr. Bagan's choir. It's just. I still get. As a matter of fact, just before we came on, I got a note from one of my students from back in those days saying how
really.
much it changed his life, and so
Uh,
that was really cool. But
Very touching.
yeah, it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun, but it changes your life in so many ways, and so you have to adapt. So during the next 5 years, I started to explore where God was going to take me in my life, which was beginning to write. And I also ran, by the way, I also ran a recording studio in my basement, producing many vanity albums for people, and that was a lot of fun. But that's a burnout in its own right. So doing all these things, but the next 5 years of my life took me on a different direction. That's where I was teaching part time. I was running the studio, and I took on a job as a music minister at a Baptist church that had just begun putting. Well, actually, they had it for about 4 years. They started incorporating modern worship choruses. Well, I came from a Southern Baptist church that is 40 years
Oh,
behind the times. I didn't even know what a chorus was, like an
wow.
actual modern chorus. So I learned all this stuff in about 3 weeks, because a friend of mine recommended me for the job. And of course, it was a new challenge. I thought, new challenge, I'm in.
I'm in.
So I learned
Head
all these.
on.
Oh, exactly. Learned all these
Yeah.
worship songs. Luckily, I played in a band, so reading a chart was nothing. But I'm singing all these brand new songs, which are old hat for them for about 4 years. But for me, as a Southern Baptist, where hymns
Yeah.
would still rule the day for another, heavens, 25 years. So it was because they're literally in Canada. Many of the Baptist churches are between 20 to 40 years behind the times. But I imagine many of them caught up by now. But so then I took on that role at Laurier Heights Baptist Church in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and loved every second of it. And now I wanted to, of course, get back to my roots, which was drama, because I had a huge amount of talent, kids, adults, you name it, who could act, who could sing. And I thought, you know what? So I started looking around
You
for
did have
drama.
access to a lot of kids.
Oh, exactly. I started looking around for dramas that I could challenge my congregation with, and I thought, I can't find something that excites me to the point where I want to put in the 2,000 hours it takes to put on a good solid musical, especially a musical drama I want to do for Christmas. So I prayed about it. I said, Lord, I need something to go with my calling. So He downloaded instantly. He said, here's your idea, and here's your songs. And I thought, okay, it was called Little Girl Lost. So I wrote this musical within, oh heavens, probably 4.5 weeks, including all the
Yeah.
music. Yeah, and now that musical, Little Girl Lost, we just did a version of it in 2017, but it has now been performed two years in a row back then at Laurier Heights, and then we did it up at Athabasca at the Nancy Appleby Theater for 2 years, and now we did it in 2017 for a full scale production, and it's just one of those productions that really warms the heart, just absolutely grabs your heartstrings, and it's all about a little girl who finds out she's not going to get the doll she wants for Christmas. And she finds this out 2 days before Christmas. So she decides to punish her parents by running away. So she ends up in the arms of this little street girl named Katie. And this girl's name's Amanda. She meets this little girl named Katie on the street in downtown fictional town of Burlington. So she meets this girl, and she takes her back to this old abandoned church where there's this huge family of street kids and a charismatic street gentleman that I got to play named Bill, and a senior lady with Alzheimer's named Molly, all living in this old abandoned church. And so it's just a wonderfully touching story of how you can move people's hearts. And it's funny, Jody, and when you do a production and you understand that you've touched people's lives. It's just one lady came up to me. There's so many stories about Little Girl Lost. I'll tell you a couple. Um, we would sell out all the time. And so up at Athabasca, my wife has this tremendous story of an answer to prayer. We had sold out the entire run, but there was this family that came in. Now get this, I'm thinking to myself, where do people get this faith? This family comes to town on faith from a small little town because they'd heard about Little Girl Lost. It was during a storm. They showed up at the door. There were no
Really?
seats available. There were no seats available, but because of the storm, we said, all we can do is put you on standby. So during the storm, this one family got caught in the storm. They had to turn back. It was the exact amount of tickets this family needed to come see Little Girl Lost. And so Wendy says, my wife Wendy, she says, you won't believe this. We just lost 8 people and we gained 8 people in the door. I'm going, things like that. And
Yeah.
this lady comes up to me at the end of the show and she goes, Mr. Bagan. And now I figure, oh, that's always a good way to start a new conversation. She goes, I have a bone to pick with you. I said, what is it? She goes, your play, your musical made my eyes leak all night. And she just had her mascara was, Jody was literally from here to here. She looked like she was trying out for a part in what's the singer? The Halloween guy. Sorry. Can't remember. But anyway, she looked like she was trying out for a part of a Halloween role.
Oh.
And it was so touching. So it's interesting. So
Oh,
after
and have all your scripts been, would you say, all been downloaded?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, they
No,
have been. Okay.
I don't
Okay.
bother. There was, a few I've written that have been secular that have been sitting on shelves, and I've been basically not allowed doing anything with them because I really don't want to do anything in the world unless it glorifies God, especially in the script world.
Amen.
So my second script that was downloaded to me. So I'm after we'd done Little Girl Lost up north in Athabasca, and I'm sitting in the congregation of this church that we attended, and all of a sudden, bink comes. It was like a bink sound, and I get my idea for Kelsey's Girls, which is again, and I thought to myself, wow. And so
Does it come to you in the middle of the night and you have to get up and start writing, or like?
No, this is in a church service. So,
okay.
And the whole thing came to me.
Perfect.
To the point where there's this lady beside me, a very good friend of mine. I said, at the end of the service, I said, can I tell you a story? So I make sure that I'm just not making this up. So I'm telling her this story and she's just crying away. She's just weeping. She goes, holy mackerel, was I ever anointed? So I thought, okay, well, I guess I need to go home and start writing it. So I went home and the Lord didn't give me it. He always does this to me. He'll give me this idea. Then he'll give me the permission to write it as to when. So then it took another 3 years, and I'm saying, Lord, I would like to write this. It's in my brain. He goes, it's coming. He says, in 3 years you'll write it. And I thought,
okay,
3 years I gotta wait.
Yeah.
So in 3 years I waited, and we.
But you've always had a great relationship, so you had the patience to wait. You understood. It's in His time.
Oh, no kidding.
You know when the right time. Yeah.
So anyway, he gives me this idea. Not this idea. He gives me the full story, including the songs for Kelsey's Girls in it, and it's one that has to be shared with the world because it's so near and dear to my heart in so many ways. It's really hard to describe how near and dear it becomes.
Your passion has come across crystal clear, even from Canada. In your texts, your emails, I mean, real, and it is. It's fabulous, heartwarming. It's a beautiful story.
Well, and imagine, imagine this for a storyline: a small town egotistical pastor, which none of us have ever met any of those. We've always met perfect pastors with no attitude.
Yeah.
So a small town full of himself pastor tries to raise his 5 daughters that range from 9 to 16 after the death of his wife. And I thought to myself, this is how God downloaded this to me, how the Holy Spirit literally put it in my spirit. He said, that's the log line. And I thought, oh, God, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes. So, and little by little did he unfold how the story is and how intricately involved it is. And it's all about, and it's so critical how we do this, Jody. It's all about how a small town buys into a lie, and it affects the spiritual life of this small town for 10 years till finally something breaks, something happens in the lives of these, especially in these girls. That's why it's called Kelsey's Girls. Robin Kelsey is Pastor Robin Kelsey, but I call it Kelsey's Girls. And some guy said, well, it's like it's I don't know, something the best little whorehouse in Texas kind of moment. I said, no, it's Kelsey's Girls, as in 5 girls that he has as his daughters. So so imagine a story where the town is believed has believed for 10 years, and actually before that they believed for a number of years before that, that Robin Kelsey's wife, and he was a jealous man, they believed that Robin Kelsey's wife was having an affair with his with her riding instructor Colin Pearson. And all this time there's whispers till finally, and Robin's wife, Ann Kelsey, was a beautiful hearted woman, wrote worship songs. She had a heart of gold, a heart of, a true heart, what they call a true heart. What that means is she's so pure that God will choose to put people like that in people's lives, to guide them and protect them and to love them to a higher calling for God. So in the story, she gets this. She knows that her marriage is now on the rocks because Robin has become so jealous, and that demon of jealousy is now affected her to a point where she says to Colin, "Look, you can't be my riding instructor anymore. You need to go home and be with your sister who was dying of cancer. Go home and be with her, and I will drive you to the airport." Well, on the way to the airport, they crash down a canyon wall into the lake, and they both perish. So that's what begins this whole thing. Now, of course, this town is going, okay, well, because of a judgment of God, that's why she died in the lake, because she was obviously having an affair, because they found a suitcase of her clothing uh, strewn down the canyon wall, and the car smashed into the lake. And of course, they perished in the lake. Well, as we learned of the story, the suitcase full of clothing was Ann Kelsey's clothing that she had given to Colin to give to his sister who was dying of cancer,
Wow.
and she wanted to cheer her up. So with her last, act of kindness and
Kindness.
love,
Yes.
she gave away all she had.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, I'm looking at the story. I'm going, Lord, this is heavy.
Heavy,
So,
heavy.
oh, I know. So the girl. It starts with, it's funny. That's the story that we get to unfold. But the story really starts with the five girls, and they finally convinced their dad to join the every year they have this little concert thing. The whole community puts on this concert to help raise money for the five Kelsey girls to buy clothes for school and their supplies and stuff. Well, it's the cheapest town. They end up raising like $57 plus 5 buttons. So it's one of those towns where they did this. But anyway, the five girls are singing this song, and they realize that they only made enough money for one of the girls to maybe get a pair of jeans that'll be a hand me down. They even sing a
Wow.
song in the production called "Hand Me Downs," which is so precious. And I love how the Lord does this. He says, "Here's your song, Hand Me Downs." I said, "Great. What does that mean?" So I was the third of five kids, so I got a lot of hand me downs. So
Sure.
I wrote the whole idea, chose everything that you possibly hand me down to a girl for her wardrobe, and wrote that into a song, and it ended up becoming the most entertaining song that you could possibly imagine that the girls perform. So they get home, and they're just distraught because they didn't even with all their hard work and singing "Hand Me Down," singing "The Little Girl's String of Pearls," which was another song that they sang, which is all about what little girls do to basically manipulate their fathers. So it's why it's called "Little Girl's String of Pearls," and it's just a priceless little song. So they sing this, they pour their hearts out at this concert and earn nothing, basically nothing. So they come home, and the middle girl, Brooke, uh, she convinces her dad, "Look, Dad, mom used to raise horses, used to bring them in for boarding. We have we live on this ranch that used to belong to Ann's parents. Can we please bring in horses to board?" Because she had a passion for horses, "so that we can at least make some money, and maybe make some money through helping to board horses and maybe train people." So Robin, he's just, he's beside himself twice. But with the girls, they taunt him. They finally get him to agree to do this. So they open up these stables, and I think to myself, okay, Lord, where's this going? So in the stables, the oldest girl, Sarah, finds a box, this chest that has a lock on it, and she's going, "Oh, this is obviously from my mother." So she kind of keeps it to herself, and she's wearing on her necklace a little lock, a little key that she didn't know why her mother even gave it to her. But she finds out that she says, "Well, wait, this can't be." So she opens this little chest, and inside it are five diaries, and I always get choked up talking about this. There are five diaries that each one was started on the day that each girl was born. So
Oh.
Anne has written all this stuff to these girls to give it to them on their 18th birthday. Also, in the bottom of the chest, oh, I know, it's just like rip your hearts
Oh
out.
my goodness.
So Sarah's reading this and she's going, "Oh my goodness!" So she shares it with her older two sisters, and they're
We need to
beside
make
each
a
other.
movie. I know you've done a play. We need to do movies.
Well, it is. I mean, I'll tell you where it went from there. But anyway, so they find this, and at the bottom of the chest is a hidden
Yeah.
compartment, which contains Anne's personal diary that she one of two of her personal diaries that she wrote for her own life, which is never supposed to be found. But of course, they accidentally find this diary, and they start learning the truth about their mother. And they learned the truth that all they've been led to believe, because basically when she died, they were her name, just like Moses was stricken from all the from Egypt. Her name was stricken from all of the memories of these girls, and they're not to speak of her because she died because of a judgment of God. And they start to learn the truth about their mother, and it's all been wrong. It's all been a lie. It's all been a fabricated lie. And so it's how we unfold this truth. And Sarah takes it upon herself, the oldest daughter. She takes on her father and says, "Dad, Father, Dad, you need to." She doesn't tell him what she's found in these diaries from her mother. He finds out that these 5 diaries, he always knew about those. He never knew about Anne's own personal diaries, but he
Oh.
knew about these 5 diaries.
Oh.
So
Mhm.
he finds out about those and he confiscates those. So the girls start reading these 2 diaries more, and they sing this song called "Mama," which is just, if you ever want to hear a
Mm.
song called "Then Rip Your Heart Out and Put It Back Together 4 times stronger than it was before," then the song "Mama" does that. So anyway, Sarah learns all the truth about her mother, and she knows she has to take on her father, and she can't tell him about the diaries because he'll probably just throw them in the fire. So she mentally and physically takes him on and says, and she starts basically attacking him on a one-by-one basis. She says, "I need to ask you some questions about my mother." And of course, Robin says, "You don't need to know anything more about your mother." She goes, "Papa, I need to know about her. I need to ask you these questions. Please give me this time." So he says, "Oh, okay, fine. Ask away." He's still as arrogant as you could possibly be. He goes,
Mhm.
"Did you love her?" And this starts a whole cavalcade of moments in a story where we don't just break the hearts of the audience. And this is God. God just doesn't break the hearts of the audience. He takes them apart meticulously, and he knits them back together with the Holy Spirit. And by the end of the movie, and I won't give you the full ending because it's important that the audience come and see the made for TV movie that we'll do, or over the series, because in the series that we can explore, because by the end of the movie, by the end of the play, of the musical, Robin, well, let me tell you one thing about it. By the end of Sarah basically attacking him and getting to admit that that she takes him on to such an extent that he finally winds up and slaps her across the face. And of course, that's, you ever seen an audience almost stand up like this,
Yes.
and
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
they're going, "Oh, no, 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 nobody strikes a girl in a musical that we're watching," and they just
Right.
were
Yeah.
okay. So at that point, um, Sarah, she takes it upon herself. She goes, "I have to do something very awful to my father." So by this time, there's been Toby, this love interest, who's been helping the girls to raise horses and get the barn ready and all this stuff. And of course, Sarah talks Toby into doing something very drastic. And in the musical version, the stage version, she talks him into taking his old truck and crashing it down the lake and making it look like they both died in the lake.
Hmm.
And of course, and they hide. This devastates Robin to the point where he finally breaks, because now he's lost his wife in this way.
Yeah.
Now he's lost his
Yeah.
oldest daughter, and he feels responsible because of slapping her and causing her to do this.
Mhm.
Well, by the end now he's taken on a journey, and it's in a spiritual journey where he realizes his pride has been the culprit here, even though he doesn't know the truth yet. So he's now devastated. There's even a funeral for these two, and it's just incredibly touching time. And so now at the end of the movie, he finally decides, or end of the musical on stage, there's a scene where he says to his congregation, "I failed you. I have not been the man I need to be. I haven't been the pastor I need to be. I haven't done anything about what God would have me to do. I've been everything to myself and nothing to God. And so therefore I'm sorry, I have to resign as your pastor." Well, of course, who walks in to this moment in time but Sarah and Toby? and she walks in and corrects all the misinformation from this congregation that's been spread, all those lies. And she says, I'd like to read a part from my mother's last page of my mother's diary. And it talks about her taking Colin to the airport. And oh, Jody, you want to talk about a moment where an entire audience goes,
Can you hear?
okay,
Yeah, yes, yes, yes.
pass out the
Hear
body
a
bag.
pin drop.
Yeah, you couldn't hear. Oh, I know. And it's funny, during one of the shows, at that point in the audience, some guy stands up and he goes, Amen. I knew she was alive and I knew this was going to work out. And
Okay.
I'm at the piano going, well, we have a new cast member today. And his name is, what's your name, sir? And it's just, we had several performances where people from the audience, because of the story, had embraced them to such an extent, we would
Yes, yes.
spontaneously get these comments. So,
Mhm.
amen, sister, or
Right.
hallelujah. So, and one lady stood up and she started pointing her finger at Pastor Robin when he had slapped Sarah, and she got this bony little finger. Where's my finger? She starts pointing his finger at him, and I said, and I just turned. And I said, "No, it's okay. She's gonna be okay." She goes, and she sits down. She just has a shakes, and so she sits down in her seat, and we continue to play. And this is, it's interesting, Jody, when you have, I think, part of the things when they're heavenly downloads, and you know how we talk in our lives, people get songs, they get stories, they get whatever, they get these heavenly downloads. But I think there's a level where we'll get a song or whatever, and we'll realize it's just for us. And
What
then
did it
there's
teach you?
what's that?
What did it teach you?
Well, put it this way: what it taught me is that there's every level, from songs and plays and stories that God will give to us to enjoy, to witness to us, all the way to the other side of the coin, where God will give you a story that is so profound and so outreaching and so enduring that it must be spread to an entire planet, to touch them as much as it did me, but as much as it did to our audiences.
Mm-hmm.
So then, of course, what I've did in the last few years is rewriting. To write a stage play in a musical is a totally different thing to write than a screenplay, and a
Sure.
screenplay even more so than a series, because a series you can spread things out. As long as you want, you can spread a series out. There's a series in Canada that's been running now called Heartland that'll be running now. I think it's going into its 15th season, because it's a story that really is enduring to people's lives. Kelsey's Girls as a TV series could run indefinitely if we chose to pick up from this moment on, which is interesting because I know that's where Barry's heart is that we pick up the story from where this call it a 2-hour season opener. We could do it
Sure.
like that.
Yes.
You could see that as a 2-hour season opener, or a separate movie that could go to Netflix, or a separate movie that could go even into theaters.
I agree.
It could do a huge thing, but then start the series right there. And then, of course, you can have flashbacks to Anne's
Right.
life,
Yeah.
right? Because in the book that I started writing for the series actually takes a totally different approach to this story, and starts with Anne's mother, and it's being told from her perspective. She's sitting in a wheelchair, having had a stroke where she can't do anything except her mind is alive. So she physically, she's actually typing this with her eyes, watching a computer screen, and she's typing the history of the Kelsey family, including the introduction of Robin into the family, and how he took over the church and all this stuff. So she gives all the backstory, and then of course the 5 girls come into it, and then we pick up the rest of it. And by the time I'm done at the end of the book, it'll be probably a book series, because
When did you start writing it?
I started writing that probably just last year.
Beginning of the pandemic?
Yeah, probably. So yeah,
When you had this free time on your hands? Can't leave
yeah,
the
no
house?
kidding. Well, I always wanted to know what I could also do with the story, and what could a
Yeah,
book do.
sure. Because
So
they each have their own spin and
yeah.
how
So
they're
in what
laid out and played out.
exactly? So what I would like to do to see for the series is, it's breaking my heart daily when I read more and more stories of pastors walking away from congregations, and congregations walking away from church.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think it's if we broke it down to so many things that are part of what our lives, are, and we shudder when we look back and think of things that we'd like to have in them. But there's issues of pride, there's issues of arrogance, there's issues of closed-mindedness, there's issues of lack of faith, of being beaten up in the spirit. What I want this series to do is to address that and build people back up and take honest to goodness love in a series, and with comedy, of course. There's even in Kelsey's Girls, it's full of laughs. If you can believe it, I told you a story that rocks your heart, but it's filled with laughs that are almost. I know I have a pretty wild sense of humor, and I'll tell you one thing from the musical and the movie, and that is God will give me these characters. This is one character named Gene Perlman, and Gene Perlman is the proprietor of Gene Perlman's world famous um, bait shop and mortuary. So he during the off seasons he runs a mortuary. During the on seasons he runs a bait shop, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But
Enough said.
but oh, I know. And Gene is an integral character. Get this, he's an integral character in the both the stage play and the movie. And he is in the stage play. We had this guy, this little short guy, looked like Danny DeVito, but he could sing like nobody's business. And he sings the song "If My People." And during that time, he rocked the place to the point where just flowing tears. You could see that in people's eyes. But he also ran a puppet, a ventriloquist puppet named Chester. And if you can picture this in a musical, so we have Gene who doesn't have the bravery or the guts or the wherewithal to tell Robin Kelsey he's also a prophet. So get this, he doesn't have the wherewithal to tell Robin anything to his face, but Chester, the ventriloquist puppet, did. so
Right.
so
Okay.
so
Okay.
so he had brought Chester out of retirement. He put Chester away since his wife ran away with the UPS man, and he put him away all this time. And so he finally decided that it was time to bring him back because he needed to tell Robin some stuff, but he didn't have the guts to. So he said he brings he brings Chester into a meeting with Robin, and and so Robin goes, Gene, what is this all about? And so Chester leans over, and goes, Robin. So he says, "Oh, I see Chester's here today too." He says, "Yes,
Mm,
Robin has something he needs to say to you." And
yeah.
so
Much
Pastor
easier that
Robin,
way.
oh, Pastor Robin goes, "Oh, this ought to be good." So he takes his little hand. If you can picture this his little ventriloquist hand, it's a Mortimer Sneed snurred puppet, and I took out the main tooth so he doesn't look like a. He actually looks like a little prophet, right? So he goes, Robin, and he goes, been talking to God about you. So Robin goes, so he goes, and he told me your heart is thicker and harder than the back of my head. And he's prophesying to him that he's about to be judged and basically sifted by God. And so by the time Robin hears enough, he's absolutely had enough from this puppet. He grabs him off Gene's permanent, he hucks him out the window, and you hear this. And what was
Yeah.
really funny, Jody, it
Yeah.
stole the show. It was you'd almost call it black comedy because it was dark, but the audience was just laughing, and they were almost hitting themselves for laughing because it was so funny to watch this puppet raise his little hand. He goes, and praise the Lord. He puts his little hand up, and what we had a person behind the scenes doing the voice of Chester,
Yeah.
and my friend Al Barb, who played Gene Perlman, had to basically memorize any lines plus any ad lib lines and be prepared to move when the spirit moved with this puppet. But for the most
Right.
part, he said
Sure.
the lines. But and it looked like, and we did it over a mic, of course, because everybody's mic'd anyway on the big stages. So it looked like Gene Perlman was the most amazing ventriloquist you've ever seen in your entire life because he could act and he could move and he could do all his actions and just raise Cain and in front of all these people, in front of Robin especially. But he was in the church service and he'd say things. It
And the
was
movie
so
was so
funny.
heavy and so deep, they needed that little break. If there was a
Oh,
moment they could laugh, they needed it.
oh, they did. And Chester would
Yeah.
stand up and he'd go, "Oh, sorry." He'd sit back down. And we do
Yeah.
all these comedic moments. And of course, everybody came up to Al Barb at the end of the show and he'd say, "You are the best ventriloquist I've ever seen." He goes, "Thank you." And he didn't want to
Thank
correct him
you so
because,
much. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah. If
amazing
you'd
what.
only known.
So anyway, even Kelsey's Girls, the series, would have a lot of comedy.
They
There's
would do
this.
extremely well. Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
so well.
Now God is downloading all these episodes to me, and there's this one episode where, and I'm thinking to myself, "Holy mackerel!" is the Lord ever, he ever got a great sense of humor? There's this one episode he has me thinking about now, and again, it's one of those download moments where Pastor Robin loses his voice, and he said, so Gene Perlman's back in the back pulpit area. They're praying together, and all of a sudden he loses his voice, and he goes, Gene, you're gonna have to do the sermon for me. I haven't got a voice. And Gene goes, Robin, I can't do that. There's no way. I don't have these. He says, just take my notes, read them verbatim. He said, there's some really big tithers there this morning, and I need you to read these notes. So he goes, Robin, I can't possibly do this. But he goes, wait a minute. I know someone who can. So he pulls out Chester, right?
There you go.
So get this. Chester is on stage at the pulpit, and he begins by starting to read the notes from Robin. And of course he goes off script. He goes, oh, I can't read this. And he starts giving a message of hope and of love and of joy and all this stuff to the congregation. He reads them their mail to the point where the congregation is going, and even Robin's going, oh, that's it. After this service, I'm out of a job because of this puppet. So, I think if I had to summarize it, I want to take almost every sacred cow that we protect. And why do we protect sacred cows in church? Because we feel that's our calling. And I want to push them over and have barbecues. Okay. Because the sacred cows that that have harmed congregations, that have hurt congregations, that have hurt pastors, that we hurt each other with our pride, with our arrogance, with all the stuff that we think is worth protecting, none of it is. It's all defined in two words, in two commands. Love God with all your heart, all your mind, all your soul, and your neighbor as yourself. That's it.
That's it. Amen.
Start with those, end with those, you will succeed. So that's what, and so since then, God has downloaded other movies. He's downloaded a one called Masterpiece, which is probably, and he's actually revealed to me that
he's found his vessel in you.
Oh,
you're the vessel. He's going to keep sending them. I hope you're able to finish your book.
Well, 3.2. He's told me that 3.2. Yeah, I'm working on it. So, okay. Give me a chance with Joe. He's told me about this movie, which will touch. He said 3.2 billion lives, and I said, "Gee, that's half the world's population almost." He goes, "Yes," and then he gave me another one that I wrote called Arrowhead, which is about a Christian fine arts school. He said this will touch 1.7 billion teenage lives for the kingdom. And he said, once you touch 1.75 billion lives that are teenagers, the rest is history, because the world as we know it will change. And both of these have such dynamic stories that you cannot believe that, well, they simply can't be from me. They have to be heavenly. Sure. And both of them came from God, and also from a buddy of mine named Cortland Van Oden. And this downloaded. And then I remember sitting at both of these movie scripts and typing away, just weeping, thinking to myself, and God does this to me. He'll have me write and write and write. I won't even know how something's going to end. And so as I'm writing especially for the movie script Masterpiece, I'm typing away, and I'm already crying. And then I see the ending coming, and well, now I can't even see the screen, and I'm trying to type because I know the ending, and I'm going, somewhere in there's the letters, but I can't see it because the ending is so dynamic and so intense and so God-given that there's no way man could write this. Right. And that's what excites me about being part of what you folks are doing, is that we're on the cusp of something that is going to change the world, and it is important that we do it.
And we need it, and we need it now.
Oh, Lord.
More than ever. Yeah.
Yeah, in such a broad, bold way that, and I see your enthusiasm, and I see you, and I love sending you notes online, because you make my day, and I try to make. There's a growing list of people I send out a blessing to every day, and now it takes me half the morning just to send out.
Wonderful. I wish I could respond quickly. You get them out, and I'm like, but I just don't have a minute. But I appreciate it, every single one of them. They're beautiful. I do.
So that's what my life is like. So
that's what your life is. So you're coming and going, and there's a whirlwind going on up here.
Always, yeah,
constantly.
As we prepare for this TV series, the Lord has said that we will move 30 million hearts with this series.
Incredible.
Which is incredible. I mean, that would be more than most series can even dream of.
And when do you project that to happen, the series to start?
Well, that's kind of up to you folks. So,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I thought God told you that too. I just
Oh,
wanted to know.
yeah. Well, like I said, I'm talking to
He
Barry. We're looking
guided
at
you to us anyway, so that's the first
yes,
step in
yeah,
the right direction.
indeed, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Wow.
So what else?
So
Is
there you
there
go.
can anybody watch anything anywhere of yours?
Well, it was musicals, so at this
Yes.
point, I've got a few things on just a few bits and pieces on
Oh, just
just
bits and oh, okay.
on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, but it's exciting. Oh, I was going to tell you, Kelsey's girls, get this how it works. Kelsey's had a great start in all kinds of ways. In that once we were done the musical on at this beautiful theater in Edmonton, and I thought to myself, okay, I need to go and explore how to take this to the masses. So, but I wanted to continue doing the stage musical because it's all I had at the time. So I began working on the process of possibly taking this to Branson, Missouri, and began working on and exploring finding a theater. And we had found a theater. I was working with one called the Star Theater in Branson. It was going to be the new home of Kelsey's Girls for probably a 2-year run,
Oh,
and
okay.
we're getting ready. We had investors interested. We had everything set in motion, and all of a sudden, God said, "I'm putting the brakes on this." And I thought, uh, "Lord, after all the work I've done, He put
Yeah,
the brakes on it." And within 2 months, COVID hit,
that's why.
and I thought to myself, "Thank you, Lord. Did we ever dodge a bullet there?" Can you imagine,
Yes.
having rehearsed whole thing, put all this money into it, and
Mm,
no audience now, and now
right.
you're sitting there with a
Right.
cat going, "So now what?" And
Good thing
so,
you
and
listen.
Branson,
Amen.
yeah, oh, I
Mhm.
had to, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd
You're
still like to take that.
amazing.
I'd
You're
like to take
awesome.
that. Thank you. I'd love
You
to
need
take
to
it
do
to
your own show. You're just like, whoo, a ball of fire.
well, thank you. It's been a tremendous journey, and I can't wait to really put God to the test to see how how amazing His Word is on all of this. To touch that many lives, we can't begin to measure what that'll mean to the world because nothing else. Once you've, if you can, you can never recover when you've touched someone's heart. They'll never forget that. They'll forget the songs, they'll forget the words, they'll forget, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
That's so
And
true.
if you've made them feel something strong for the Lord, if you've broken their heart and then knit it back together and repaired it, now you've done something for the kingdom. So yeah, let's do that together.
We will. We shall. And I look forward to it. And I'm so
Awesome.
glad that I got to meet you kind of in person.
Yeah, it feels like we're in person.
I know it does. It does. It
Yeah.
does.
Can you warm up my coffee? Sorry.
I can.
I understand. I
You
understand.
could toss an ice cube in and it's just as good. I like iced coffee. It's all
Yeah,
good.
it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. I like
Was there anything else that you want to share before we head out and maybe until next time?
it. No, but I sure look forward to each and every time we're going to do this because there's probably going to be that many more ideas and that many more movie scripts and things. And so I guess the last thing I could say is that as this reaches people, we're always looking for investors. We're looking for people with the heart, the true heart of God, to make a difference. And that's not just putting, you know, it's literally finding millions of dollars to do it right. I want us to compete with Hollywood so that we never look back and go, gee, if we just had another whatever X amount of dollars or this actress or that. I never want to look back and say we did our best, but I want it to
Sure.
be our best plus, because
Hmm.
I don't believe
It'll
in giving
happen.
anything, yeah, and I don't believe in giving anything second rate to God. It has to be first rate. So, and that's what these movies, and that's what these stories are. And
Yeah.
it's funny, story, when it comes down to it, if you have a great story, it can do wonders.
And
It's
they'll
when
be
you have a
passed down
reasonable.
so long, so many
Oh
generations,
yeah,
on
if
and on and on.
yeah, I mean, look at your favorite movies that you watch over and over.
Sure.
You
Right.
know, it's
Hmm.
because of the story when you break it down, and most writing seminars and whatnot always break it down to if it's a story worth telling, it'll be a story worth watching. And so every one of these, from Masterpiece to Arrowhead to Kelsey's Girls to Little Girl Lost, which is the one we did for many, many, many times. We did that seven. That's been mounted 7 times in Canada. Tremendous Christmas production. That's a great story. And I have other ones. One called Carry Me Home, which is a great, great story. and other ones that are now coming, being part of my inner psyche, that God is just saying, you. Oh, the other main series that I want to launch after this, and God won't give me permission to write it yet. And this has been somewhat frustrating because it's probably the most exciting, but the most outreaching series that'll ever
Well, it's
come.
something to look forward to. You have a
Oh,
lot
totally.
going on right now. So
Yeah, and it's
that's
called The
why he
Tingle.
needs you to take a
Yeah,
breath, breathe, and, just one baby steps.
yeah, one foot at a
He
time.
knows your personality.
Yes, yes, very much so. Next time we do this, I'll bring out Chester and I'll show you how.
Oh,
how
that would be great. I'd love that. And hopefully the next time, maybe, I'll be in Canada or you'll be in Florida.
Yeah, well, it's just really funny. I have a 6-year-old, and at the time when I introduced my granddaughters, they live in Toronto, so they live way too far away from us. But I introduced them to Chester when they were out for Christmas, 2 Christmases ago, and they were young at that point. She was 5 and 3. So the Chester has this wicked sense of humor. He asked one of the girls to marry him, and they just kind of ran screaming for their lives because he was about the same height as these two girls. Because I was working Chester with my hand, and one of the youngest, she runs upstairs. She couldn't just fathom what this. So the oldest is looking at this doll because he was talking away, and and having fun with her. And finally, she goes, Chester, I think you need to probably go back in your suitcase because I. And she couldn't understand at 5 whether or not he was real or not, because he would
Oh,
move his eyes and his ears. He would
right.
move all his things, not his ears. He would move his eyes and his eyebrows, and he would blink and all this stuff. He would talk, and I was enough of a bad ventriloquist that she was always watching him so I could make it look like he was talking. But anyway, this past so now she's 7, and Emmeline is 5, and Lavinia is 7. And so Lavinia comes online, and I said, "Would you guys like to see Chester again?" She goes, "Yeah, we'd love to." So they see Chester, and we visit for a while, and he's, of course, he's off. I'm off screen, so Chester's talking away to the girls. And finally, she's, "Emmeline, you need to go upstairs." And Lavinia comes online. With me on screen. She goes, "Papa, I've been thinking about Chester, and I'm trying to. I don't think he's real, but I'm just trying to figure out. I'm trying to sort this out in my mind." She's like this little 7-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
She's 7 going on 25, right? She goes, "Can you do me a favor?" I said, "Sure." Can you have Chester walk across the floor all by himself?" And I said, well, and I'm thinking to myself, of course, as a writer, I said, "Well, Lavinia, I can't do that." She says, "Aha." I said, "No, there's a reason I can't do that." I said, "When Chester was your age, he had polio, and his legs are just these little stimbly things that wobble so he can't walk all by himself.
You
I have
went
to help
there.
him walk."
You went
Walk.
there.
I went there, and she goes, "Lies, lies, lies, lies,
Ah!
lies."
Uh-huh.
She goes, "Okay, Papa, can you sit him on the couch, and can I talk to him all by myself?" I said,
That'd be
"Well,
no also.
yeah." "Oh, wait a minute. You'd probably find a way to make him talk." So she goes, I'm just going to have to, I don't know what I'm going to believe." She goes,
Okay. Oh.
and my wife and I were just killing ourselves
Oh,
laughing.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Especially when she says, "Lies, lies, 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 lies."
Right. I know the things that they say.
Oh,
Too
I know.
cute.
And they're
Well,
so
it was
precious.
a pleasure having you on, Faith, today.
Thank
Daniel,
you.
Bagan.
Thank you, Jode.
And
Jode.
I look forward to
Glenn.
having you again. I'm reading your book and seeing the play. I'm very excited about everything that we're going to venture into. And, we'll have to do this again sometime.
Very
So,
soon.
okay.
Okay,
All
God
right,
bless.
guys. Until next time, take care of yourself. There's only one you.
There's
Talk to
only
you
one.
later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. No clue.